Let's get going off in a little different direction here, or maybe it's the same direction. Maybe I confuse myself. Um, I'm going to hit, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to hit what would be a 3-day NLP or 3-day cognitive behavioral therapy seminar in about 30 minutes. And so therefore I'm going to rush through a bunch of stuff and whine and rant a lot in the process. But bear with me here. Let's see, share screen. Let's see if I get the right one shared. Let's start with this, which is a pretty good graphic to begin with. Can everybody see that okay? Did that screen share fine? It says NLP communication model. Great. So let's start with this. This is, kind of NLP. If you're not familiar with it, it stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and it's arguably in the range of pop psychology. But it has some useful things to think about. The underlying premise of NLP by Bandler and Grinder was, if anybody can get a result, then if you watch, model, and replicate what they do, you can get the same result, right? And they really started with one world famous hypnotherapist, Milton Erickson, and a world famous family therapist by the name of Virginia Satir, I believe is the correct pronunciation. And they looked at what she did in therapy, and they looked at what Erickson did in hypnotherapy, and they modeled that behavior and then taught that model. And their early books were, horribly written in arcane titles like The Structure of Magic and one thing or another. But what they really were about is modeling people who got really good results with working with other human beings, both from a hypnotherapy standpoint and from a family therapy standpoint. The main conclusions on the family therapy side that they talk about a lot is matching, mirroring, modeling. So it's all of the sales techniques, if you will, or communications techniques of really creating empathy and creating a relationship with another person by physically and tonality and everything else becoming more like they are. It's why in practice, very few people put their customer service reps in, say, New Jersey. They put the customer service reps, in Tulsa or Oklahoma City or something like that. And it's why it fails dramatically to put the customer service reps in India, for instance, is there's a tonality on the phone, there's a personableness and so forth. But mostly what Satir said is, in order to build rapport, what you do is you match and mirror and model. So if somebody is tapping a pencil at a certain pace, you kind of create the same movement, model your tonality, model the pace of your voice and so forth with them, model the body posture. And so it was about modeling and building rapport and having them feel comfortable on a subconscious level and leading. And the hypnotherapy, a lot of the application is in embedded phrases in the way you talk to people, which really kind of embeds, hypnotic suggestions and so forth. And it's not about, putting them into a hypnotic state so much as creating a conversational pattern that places the suggestions in their mind. But I wanted to go to this particular graphic because, and there's another one I didn't pull up, the 5-finger pointer pattern, but this is particularly useful for us. Right now, we have roughly, and I don't know exactly what the skew is, those who are having the worst results are least likely to share their numbers with us. But, probably 2/3 of our schools are doing just fine, if not thriving in the current environment. And somewhere between 10% and 25% are having a complete emotional meltdown and are not doing particularly well. And the difference is a fine combination, not to overgeneralize, but it's mostly people who make bad decisions and think about the world in counterproductive ways. And then number two is don't take enough action and do enough stuff. Our biggest problem always, and it's usually in the marketing realm, and it continues to be in the marketing realm in this, is people who underestimate how much stuff they have to do to get enough students in the door. And they underestimate how difficult it is. They underestimate how expensive it is. They underestimate how many either man hours or dollars spent it's going to take, right? So, but let's go to this NLP model. The basic thing that it's indicating, to massively oversimplify, is that if there's an external event, right? So right now we're in the corona shutdown, reopening, social distancing, all this craziness going on. And you overlay that with riots and every other crazy crap, right? But an external event happens. What it's saying is the way anybody interprets that event first goes through their filters that is based upon, I'm not going to get into explaining it, but meta programs, the way they view the world generally, their underlying values, their general belief about the world, decisions that they have made in the past, memories of what's happened in the past. So before anything that might be objectively factual really enters their level of thinking, it goes through all of these subjective filters and then gets interpreted from their own subjective worldview, rather than really having the objective external event end up in their mind to be evaluated in an objective and an independent way. Is that fair enough so far? And then once it's in there, what they're going to do next is greatly dependent upon, for want of a better way of saying it, what their mood is at the time. It's going to be dependent by their emotional state of being, right? If somebody is already stressed out, freaked out, the end of the world is coming, any of these things, once they make it through their existing filters, generalizations, and one thing or another, is going to be acted on based upon that frightened and emotional state, right? And to use this as an current example, is when you're frightened and when you're highly stressed out, you revert to fight or flight, right? And so it doesn't, in many cases, it doesn't lead to taking action. It leads to, flight, meaning just ignore it, assume that, nothing good can happen, curl up in a fetal position on your floor and wait for things to pass. I mean, there's all kinds of bad ways to react to stuff like this, right? But so if your mental state, what this is saying, your emotional state is a fine combination of what your internal representations are of what's going on. And then it's the way you're using your body and behaving, right? So a way that I say this simply, not necessarily using their format, but the way I say this simply is, if you're in the mode of taking massive action, you're mentally in the mode of making things happen and thinking things are happening. And, let's take it as a marketing thing. If you got 20 or 30 different things going on, something's going to work, for God's sake. But just the action of placing lawn signs, placing rack cards, talking to the guy at the pizza shop to get flyers on the box, talking to the ad reps, getting the Facebook advertising out, just the action of doing all that stuff creates a more positive mindset of results than sitting there worrying about, wondering about, thinking about what should go on. Does that make sense? So let me shift to a different model, but it is going to have very similar conclusions here. Here is my new, go ahead and mute yourself if you're going to take calls. But here's my a in-depth study I did many years ago that came back to the forefront as I started reading and I just sent this stuff out to you, so you don't need to take pictures of it. It's also on the Facebook group, so you're welcome to. This is basics of cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, it approaches this from a slightly different way, but it leads you to the same conclusion. So you'll see here filtering, catastrophizing, polarized thinking, Heaven's reward, fallacy, control, always being right, and so forth. But let's just talk about two or three of them. Number one that I see is down here at the bottom, overgeneralization. This happens every damn meeting we do, okay? One student says something, and therefore the one thing they said, which may even be misinterpreted, may even not be what they meant to begin with, suddenly becomes the way that it gets overgeneralized to be a rule on how we should deal with people, right? You combine that one with, well, in fact, it's not on this one. But I'm going to add one that should be on this list, which is mind reading. So you add overgeneralization to mind reading, and you've got a path for disaster with your book. I mean, with your school, right? So one or two or three instances, and suddenly you generalize that to the to your entire student population, or you generalize it to everybody within a 10-mile radius of your school, right? Number two is the mind reading thing. And we get this almost every meeting as well. Well, what they think is, well, you don't know what they think. In fact, after you've asked them like 22 questions, frankly, you still don't know what they think because they lie to you, distort, overgeneralize, smoke screen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It's in part why all the political polling the last couple times around have been so off, right? Because one, there's a sampling error on who they can actually get hold of, and number two is just because you ask the question doesn't mean they tell the truth. So, for instance, why Trump got so much more vote than because it was the wrong answer to give to the poller. But if you look at this and we start looking at some of this stuff, see, number one on the list is filtering. And it says here, focusing on the negative, ignoring the positive. And that goes back to the way you think about the NLP model. That's a simplistic way of saying that objective reality is getting filtered by what your existing belief system is. If you're in the mood to be and you're predisposed to be and you're ready to be depressed about the news or about an event, then you'll only take out of that what is the stuff that creates that depression. And if you're predisposed to be optimistic, then you'll take out just the stuff that's optimistic, okay? Tony Robbins, if you listen to him a lot, and myself, all of our staff, and all of my friends that I worked together over the years, many years ago, did everything that Tony had ever done, including June Reed promoted him to black belt. Ernie Reyes Jr. was dating his daughter at one time. I mean, there was a lot of martial arts ties back when. But Tony, in his language and in his conversations, and many times he doesn't explain it, but he'll say things like, my delusion is, right? And what he means by my delusion is that I have a thought about the way things are. It's not an objective reality. It's my thought about the way things are. Any thought that I have about the way things are is going to be subjective, not objective. And therefore, I choose my delusion to be things that are going to support my success and my growth, rather than choosing my delusion to be things that put up barriers and roadblocks and keep me from growing. Does that make sense? And it's exactly what we're seeing. And for many years with my staff, I always used it in the frame of character. Disaster, hard times, difficulties, they don't create character, they reveal character, right? We're in a situation where 25 to 50% of our industry is going to go belly up. It's starting to happen now because it takes a little while for the landlords to evict them and for the guy who's already depressed and thinks he can't do anything to finally throw in the towel and the money to run out of the bank account and one thing or another. I've seen two pretty high profile people throw in the towel just in the last couple of days. But the reason is, one, their mental ability to interpret events and react appropriately wasn't there. And number two, they didn't have good guidance on what to do, right? So not to take too much credit, because, you know, in our case, we have a whole bunch of people who we worked with hand in hand and hand in glove, you know, during this process. Many of them thrived and a few of them imploded, right? Exactly the same advice. Well, it's all in the way they interpreted, they looked at it, they filtered it, and it's in whether they got off their ass and went and implemented, or whether they just listened to it and then went back to their own way of unproductive thinking. Is this making sense to everybody? So going back to the cognitive behavioral therapy, let's look at a few of these others. I'm not gonna go into it forever. Again, this could be, you know, a week seminar, but let's talk about polarized thinking. How does that manifest itself? No one wants to do martial arts right now, so therefore, why am I going to spend money trying to get them in? Well, anytime you say no one, goes back to NLP, 5-finger pointers. Anytime you say no one, you're wrong, right? There are some that do, but you've got to moderate what you say. Never is one of those things that's almost always wrong as well. But you jump to conclusions. It's either great or it's awful, right? Now, in this context, today's news is that in June, the job numbers are up 5 million. Okay. In the last 2 months, the job numbers are up 7.5 million. Let me give you two possible interpretations. The delusion that helps you grow and become more successful, and the delusion that takes you on a spiraling downward path. Well, I can look at that number and say, well, okay, but there's still 11% unemployment. So I don't care that it's not 20%, it's still 11%. Unemployment has doubled, more than doubled, maybe tripled since February. There's still 11% employment. Plus, for God's sake, Florida and Texas and all these damn Republican governors, they open too fast. There's spikes. That idiot Trump did a rally and nobody had masks. And by the way, all these BLM guys were out there and they were packed wall to wall and they're spreading this crap everywhere. So there's going to be another spike. They're going to shut everything down. And, you know, the 11 million are all people who are impoverished anyway. And it's getting even worse, right? So I can have that interpretation. It's not objectively true. It's not objectively false. It's just a subjective reaction to today's news, which is going to spiral you down into further abysmal results, right? Or I can have my reaction of, holy crap, that is double what anybody would have expected. Last time on the jobs report, it was up 2 million. Everybody expected it to be down 5 million. That's a $7 million or a 7 million person swing. The economy is V-shaping faster than anybody would have possibly expected. As soon as the switch starts coming back on, everybody wants to be out there spending money. They're anxious to do something productive. Most of them want to be safe, but they're anxious to do something productive. They have money in their pocket. They want to spend it. In fact, most of the ones that don't have the money in their pocket is the same category that normally don't have money in their pocket, right? So I can have that reaction to the news, right? Now, which delusion is going to take you to optimistically and aggressively taking action with the expectation that your business can not only survive, but thrive and grow? Would everybody say the second one, right? So in reality, all of this stuff you have to be aware of all the time. And the arguments and conversations and, you know, Master Moody has his degree and he's got a background in therapy. I'm more of the therapy mode of slap it out of you. You know, I'm not exactly empathetic if you haven't gotten the idea. But regardless of all of that, our conversations with people who feel like they're going down for the third time are exactly that subjective overreaction, overgeneralization, catastrophizing about if it wasn't this event, they would be overgeneralizing and catastrophizing about something else. Is that making sense so far? And I shared both of these in the Facebook group, as well as gave you the link where you can find these. I don't attest to anything else on those pages. I was just looking for these two
Master,
particular graphics.
Yeah,
go ahead, Master.
Put something really fast in, since you brought me up. I think everything you're saying is spot on. And there's a lot of you on the call that may have internal dialogue right now. That's exactly what's going on that he's talking about. Yeah, but my area. We've heard, yeah, but, oh, I can't do it because of this, because nobody has access to internet. Yeah, because nobody has access. And it's exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I'm going next, Master Mary. So you're right on track with where I wanted to go.
Yeah, but so watch your internal dialogue right now, because here's the thing that you got to realize. There's people that are very successful, and we have examples in our group. They're just in the higher level meetings that are doing 100,000 a month, that are doing 70,000 a month. There are people that have exactly the same situation as you. And the difference is what he's talking about right now. This is one of the most powerful and most important meetings you guys could possibly have. And I'm really glad you did this, or you didn't even tell me you were going to do this. Otherwise, you made a bigger deal out of it. This is, so I'm ranting a little bit right now, but the internal dialogue you may be having now, yeah, but me. The thing that should be in your head is, what's the guys that are doing 100,000? Some of the guys are on the call now, and then this is just improvement in value.
Yeah, I warned them we were going to put them to work if they showed up, so that's great. We got Paul and Amanda who
for all of us. I mean, even for all of us to improve in all these areas, because we all do this some. You're never perfect in these areas either. But that internal dialogue, if you think, yeah, but there's people in your situation. The difference is this stuff. And we're giving you the tools and techniques, but the difference is this stuff. So anyway, thanks for letting me know.
Well, let me continue with what you were just saying, because that was where I was going next, Master Moody. You mind read effectively this time.
Sometimes it does work.
Yeah. Well, it's not like we don't know how each other thinks pretty well. Here is some mythologies, and I mean it exactly this because it's complete horseshit. Here's some mythologies that we keep hearing. And by the way, before I get to that, the worst thing you can do in business, and it's not just you, big companies, massive multi-billion-dollar companies that really should know better, and usually they're just morons at the top doing this shit. They also, when there's a recession, when there's something like this, they cut their ad budgets. It's the dumbest thing they could do. You never cut the ad budget when things are rough, and you never cut the sales staff. I mean, that's number one and number two. Mindy, you remember me talking about that with your previous idiots, right? So you never cut the sales staff and you never cut the ad budget. But what you've got to do when things get more difficult in the market objectively is you double down on your marketing. You don't cut back. If it takes me doing 15 things a month to get 15 new students and things get like they are right now, I better be doing 30 things, right? I don't roll back into a ball and stop doing anything, because that's the dumbass loser reaction to this kind of market, okay? Now, here's mythology. Mythology number one, students don't want to do Zoom. Well, bullshit. Students want to do what they can do right now. If they can't go into the school and there's 30 people and we're all kicking and punching and yelling and punching each other and grappling and choking each other the hell out and arm bars and all that stuff, they can't do that. They want to get as close as they can to that in the current environment. Okay? It's very rare that anybody who would be of the income demographic that we're in for our students, I mean, we're not talking about poor people. They're in the ghetto and they don't have a computer at home and they don't have internet access at home. That shouldn't be who you have anyway, right? So pretty much anybody that we're going to attract in the school, they have multiple devices. Essentially everybody, it's an overgeneralization, but in the US and Canada and the UK, every damn body has a smartphone. almost all of them have a tablet. Essentially, all of them have internet connection and Wi-Fi in their home. And essentially, all of them have some type of computer, even if it's only a tablet or it's a smartphone, right? But if they have a smartphone, hell, if they don't have a way to prop it up, send them a damn tripod. They're easy enough to get. They're $5, right? But they almost all, if they're a good prospect for us, they have internet connection. They have a ton of devices laying around the house. One or both parents has probably already done meetings using Zoom or similar platforms. They're familiar with the process now. The kids are oftentimes doing it with school. They've done it, some of this stuff virtual. They've used Google Classroom. They've used Zoom or comparables. They're familiar with it. So we hear over and over and over again, my students don't want to do Zoom. Bullshit. They want to do what you were doing before, and they're unable to do it right now. So therefore, they want to do, in most cases, what they can do right now. Would they rather be face-to-face with you? Well, some of them are freaked out enough they don't feel comfortable with that at all, right? Others would love to be doing that if you're wearing a mask and they're wearing a mask and you're 8 feet away and you hand sanitize every 12 seconds and, they're wearing disposable gloves, right? Others would like to just be back to normal and forget this thing exists, right? There's that spectrum. But don't use the excuse that they don't want to be on video conference because they want to do what they can do right now, right? It's not like they don't want to do video conference. They'd rather be further up the spectrum on all this other stuff. That's great too, right? Right now in most areas.
Can I add something right while you're on that, yes. Mr. Oliver? Because what everybody is doing is forgetting that if you had a dropout problem before, let's say your percentages were just a little bit high than you wanted, those things are going to compound with the Zoom because everybody is not using the card system with the 3 boxes with that whole retention at the end of the week and making calls and getting them back in and following the same. How many times did Master Oliver say, follow the same procedures you were doing before? I was talking to people that still weren't giving out stripes. They have got to be emailing those sheets into you. You've got to make a big deal out of it. At the end of every class, they're getting the stripes. They come by and pick them up or you mail them to them. You praise those that are doing it. Some of them weren't even giving those out, medals and trophies out at the graduations. You've got to do all of that, stay on top of your retention. And for some, their retention really stayed the same. The difference was they weren't doing any marketing to get any intros. So now it compounds the problem because now we have people going out with nobody coming in to take their place. So you got to do both ends of it. I got to get more coming in and I got to keep those in there. And I got to make sure you're utilizing the systems that we've showed you that are available to you to make sure. And if you don't have those, make sure that you're on that meeting next week that we're going to be covering, because that's what I'm going to go over is how to get those students on that Zoom meeting to make it fun, to prevent your dropout and how to solve that problem. And then the next one after that, we're going to be talking about how to get more of new people back in.
Yeah, and now you jumped the gun on me too, but that is good because we were going there. So, so on topic, myth number 1 is that they can't or won't do virtual classes. They might prefer to be with you face-to-face if it was allowable, and if it's allowable in your area now, great, and if it's not allowable, so be it, right? Again, remember, this is like a dimmer switch. It's going to open up, and then it's going to maybe close back down a little bit. It's going to be a gradual thing. I think for the foreseeable future, we're simulcasting every class by Zoom, every class, by the way. MJ, you put something up there, every class. And you're doing classes in the park, and you're doing social distance classes in your facility, and you're doing masks, wash their hands, and HEPA filters on the HVAC with UV light, all that stuff, right? But stay on this. The mythology number 2, and this really just aggravates me because it's one of my pet peeves. People won't pay this much as we want us to charge for virtual classes. Well, we know that's a mythology because, you know, Amanda Olson, to her great credit, kicked off doing April, 31 people, 100% virtual on the normal price sheet.
It's time to thrive, not just survive. Stephen Oliver has decided to share free martial arts stimulus package worth at least $3,000 absolutely free. He and his team will teach you how to serve your students, grow your school, improve your revenue, and grow your staff during the shutdowns and the gradual reopenings into the new normal. The schools that he's working with are thriving during challenging times. In what ways? How about $92,000 revenue in March, 30 enrollments in April, and an overwhelming lead and intro flow in May, $201,000 in renewals in one weekend in April, and much, much more. Does this sound unbelievable? Well, we will share it all with you absolutely free as a $3,000 plus free gift. This is a special Save and Grow Our Industry stimulus plan, only for the first 100 schools to claim it by filling out our acceptance form on this page. You'll receive a total of $300,000 in free martial arts school growth tools that includes the complete checklist for thriving during shutdowns and the complete checklist for successful gradual reopenings. You'll also receive the recordings of 8 members-only all-hands meetings that detailed real-world examples from very successful school owner on what's working now to great new students, keep 100% of students happy and engaged, and hit new revenue records. If you think that these are challenging times, think again. It's time for you to thrive. Did you know, for instance, your students can love the new normal with much additional support, resources, and personal interaction? We're getting 90+% retention into the new normal. Belt rank progression, character development, leadership development, stripe testings are all working great. Our members are building tremendous loyalty. The marketing Parthenon that Master Oliver teaches is working better than ever. Why? Facebook's traffic is up 640%, and advertising rates are down. Email is working. Really, people are reading their email again. Public and private schools are more willing than ever to help promote your program. Publicity is working better than ever. Our members are becoming local TV stars and getting great coverage on TV, newspapers, radio, and many other sources. Driving free introductory traffic. Direct mail's working great. Students' reactivations is working great. Getting back to those who dropped out due to other activities, among other reasons. And many, many more sources are working great. It's simple and easy to teach virtual introductory lessons and do virtual enrollment conferences at your normal terms and tuition, all at excellent closing rates. It's easier than ever to help students set long-term goals for themselves. Renewals are working better than ever, and it's easier than ever to get parents engaged in training and to support your processes. Claim your free $3,000 value martial arts stimulus package immediately.
Right? Now, if I'm enrolling somebody for a year enrollment, I'm probably not, there's some exceptions, but I'm probably not saying this is, for all the way down in black belt, you're just doing it on video. I'm saying, well, we're going to be doing everything we can, including additional curriculum support and videos you can watch online, additional assignments online. We're going to be doing virtual classes. We're going to be doing classes in the park, and we're going to be in the school. And be safely and social distancing and so forth. And if things get back to normal, we'll be back to normal. And in the meantime, we're going to be doing all of those options for you, right? So, Amanda's on the meeting, so I warned her and Jan and Paul that I was going to put them to work. But Jan or Amanda, as long as I'm on that topic, tell us about your enrollment results, April, May, virtual and pricing and all that stuff.
So in April and May, we ended up with 42 enrollments, new members, and it was the same monthly price, $247 a month, as what we normally charge. And we did, I did discount the enrollment, but to be honest with you, I don't think I should have had to do that. Just kind of a mental hurdle to get over.
And full disclosure, I yelled at you about it.
Right. As well you should have. And then, you know, as students started coming back into the school, you know, right now, pretty much our entire basic class is people that we have just started meeting for the first time in person, but we've built a relationship over Zoom. And some of the students are still continuing on Zoom because they're not coming in. And we're just going on just as normal, and pretty excited about that. Because, you know, as things are kind of dialing up and dialing down, Zoom is just going to become part of our regular, it's not going away.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a marketing standpoint, you more than anybody, Amanda, so good, kudos to you. You have been really good at creating a media presence for yourself, an expert presence. You're doing the Master Mom thing. You're on TV with that. You're getting lots of press coverage about that and everything else. But would I be correct in saying most of the traffic, the last point of them taking the action was Facebook, and arguably part of your incredible Facebook results is you become a little media superstar in your area. You're doing a great job online. Otherwise, you're out in the community wherever you can. You're doing a ton of other stuff to create that inflow. Is that a fair way to say it?
It is. The Parthenon that you you know, hammer into us is something that I had going really strong, and about that last week and a half of March, I was, you know, I fell into, I've got to stop spending all money and just, you know, just stop that. And then I realized there was no way I was going to make it if I was not enrolling people. So I really actually doubled down on a lot of the Facebook marketing. And, you know, I called Master Moody about our website too, our SEO, and just kind of talked some strategies there. Because I knew that the only way people were going to see us were going to be online. And so also with the media that I have, the TV station, radio, and even our print newspaper, I was able to call them and say, hey, this is what a small business is doing here locally, how we're staying open and active in the community. And they all kind of jumped on the opportunity to tell that story, you know, something positive in the news. So those relationships were, you know, just all of it together. You know, even last week, even though we are still kind of a hybrid of in-person and Zoom, you know, we're putting out the bandit signs. You know, I'm just not going to slow down on the marketing because it is going to get us all the way through this and then beyond.
Yeah.
I think a danger of the internal dialogue some people might be having, Amanda, would be that, I just want to interject here, that somebody might be saying, oh yeah, but that's Amanda Olson. She's in a really big city. She must be in a really big city. And they may be thinking in their minds that, oh, and she's the media superstar, but you weren't always the media superstar. And, you know, your city is really huge, isn't it?
Our population is 65,000. I'm up in the Appalachian Mountains in East Tennessee, one of the poorest communities in our country. So I am not, you know, our median income here is around 40,000 a year. I'm not a metropolis, and, you know, really, I think when I first joined this group, hearing Kobe Winkler talk about, we had the same kind of size town, and he was doing a great job. That really gave me confidence that, you know, okay, if he's doing it, I can do it. So hopefully that's what some of you guys are hearing today. But
yeah. 60,000. Sorry to interrupt you, but let's clarify the 60,000 people. That's 60,000 people a long way away from you. It's not 60
people driving 15 to 20 miles to my studio. Absolutely.
Right. So some of you might be thinking, oh yeah, but I only have 30,000 people. But yeah, but that's still probably comparable to what Amanda's dealing with too. It's in a long distance apart, you know, big geographical area. So again, you should be hearing this, I think, and going, you know, Amanda's awesome. But if you're hearing this, you should be thinking, I could do that too. And that's, I think, what you'd encourage people to think, right, Amanda?
Absolutely. It really is in your head. And as far as media presence, you know, Master Oliver at one of our marketing meetings, he said, align yourself with the celebrities in your hometown. And so that's exactly what I did. Just went back in and said, okay, who are people watching? How do I get connected with them?
And that 40,000, you know, median income. Remember that is a poor community. If anybody had a reason to say they can't afford to pay the tuition now, they want to quit because the husband's not working or whatever. But you see, when they're ingrained into the system, the parents aren't going to sacrifice the kids because they place an importance. So she developed that social proof and that rapport with the parents where, you know, $240 or, you know, $250 a month to keep your kid during this pandemic, to keep him in a positive mode, both mentally and physically, is a small investment to make compared with other things that they might be spending that money on.
Oh, and I see Tim Harrison's staff here. Is Master Harrison here?
He's in a chiropractor appointment right now, but he's
okay.
Dial back in a little bit.
I want to tell you guys, I just took a little bit of a pressure off your back because Master Harrison was 2 hours ago frustrated, irritated, and pissed off that in May his numbers were within 2% of 2019, but off the plan to be up 20%. And he was frustrated that he hadn't hit plan to be up 20% and was just, you know, plus or minus even from last year. So what I told him is he could take great pressure off himself in the worst crisis and worst pandemic that we've ever seen in the United States to be even, but keep holding the staff accountable for plan and keep kicking their ass on that one. So just so you know, well, I guess that didn't help you much, but that was a conversation that we had. In fact, it's less than 2 hours ago. It was at about 11:15. But great job there, guys. Hey, Paul, jump in here. We'll put Jan here to work as well, since I recruited you guys to jump in here. Tell us about both your experience with those who aren't thinking right, but also your experience with your school.
Unmute.
He's unmuted. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Experience has been, I tell you, it's been, I always praise you because, you know, we jumped on board really quick with the guidelines and the recommendations that you made. And, you know, add that onto the things that we normally would do, the, you know, attendance calls and stripes and testing and postcards and all that stuff. And we're good. We're good. I mean, we're off a little bit, but I mean, we're still putting some business on. We're keeping students. The feedback that we're getting from parents all the time is really good. Unlike some schools I know that are in my area, I know 2 of them that went out of business. I know another 2 of them that are down 50 to 60%. I know another guy he's done absolutely nothing, and he's going to wait until after July 8th. When they come back, he'll start doing things. So on my end, I mean, we're working probably harder than we probably worked in a while, you know, just to keep everybody. But the feedback from parents.
Well, I got to tell you, Paul, not to be snarky with all the wonderful things you're saying, and you know, if you appreciated that much, you could have just sent the Jaguar to me rather than trading it on that Mercedes. That was a beautiful car. I have tears from it, but you should have just kept it and gotten the new one. But what I was going to say on that is, you know, you're the guy that I love to harass because it seems like you spend half your life in the Virgin Islands with a beautiful blonde or a beautiful trio.
Yeah, I like to get away. I like to get away. I like to work, but I like to get away as well. So.
Yeah.
And Paul does have 2 schools, so you know, he's got his staff that he's trained, but you know, doing that, and they're doing a hell of a job because he did a hell of a job training them.
Well, thank you. No, I'm blessed. I have a great bunch of guys and girls that work with me. We try to stick to a regiment of meetings and training, staff training. One of the things that resonated me with things I learned from Master Smith and Master Oliver and the group, of course, Master Moody, training the staff like you would train them on a technique.
Yeah.
So if you train on this kata or this form or this sparring technique, or do that on the phone, do that with your side up, and I think that was a huge part. But my guys have really rose up to the occasion. I mean, we had the mindset like failure is not an option.
Well, your mindset too that I really respected, Paul, is that you started teaching classes outdoors and getting your students back live, in person, long before the state has even told you could do it.
Yeah.
You weren't buying into that stay home and forget all that. You were out there.
being a bad boy. I opened up, I mean, we've been doing this a month now. I opened up June 1st. We did it with limited seating, pre-registration, social distancing, sanitize hands, mask. And we did like 3 days a week. And then we did that for about 2 weeks. And then we just hit it. We just hit it full schedule and everybody came back. And one of the things I thought was interesting, I was waiting for the shoe to drop. I was waiting for parents to say, this is scary. You're not being safe. I mean, I was looking for all the things. My mind started to drift that way. And then I said, well, wait a minute. What are we doing? We're doing the same thing we've always done. We just got some guidelines. And then if I had one person say it, I'd had probably 5 people say it. They said, this is an essential business for our children.
Yeah.
And that hit me. I went and I looked at a couple of dads and moms and I said, this is essential. My boy needs this. My daughter needs this. The focus, the social outlet, the discipline. So they kept telling me all the wonderful things that we do for them. So those are the ones that are coming out and they want to be part of it. So the experience, it's been a shitty experience for all of us. I mean, no doubt. I mean, but
well, hell, the movie theaters are still closed, for God's sake.
Gyms are still closed in my state. You can't go to. I haven't. Normally I go to a gym for the last couple of years, and my guys have been closed for 4 months now.
Yeah, mine just opened this week. I'm happy.
Well, and for those who don't know it, Paul, you're kind of for
New Jersey.
For March, April, May, you are really in the belly of the beast, right?
Yes.
So you're not New York City Metro, but you're just a stone's throw out of New York City.
Right.
Metro.
Yeah, it's basically whatever New York was doing. Our great governor said, "Hey, we'll do the same thing."
Yeah.
And so we were like, in my mind, I did what we were supposed to do. I did it, and they asked me for 14 days. I gave them almost 4 months, and that's when I said June 1st, hey, I'm doing something. But we did it safely. We communicated with the parents. We called, we lettered, we emailed. I dropped books off. Also, all the recommendations that we were getting from the group put into action.
And you did it safely with the social distancing and the other things. So
correct.
The parents knew that you weren't just doing it haphazardly, but
right.
You were doing it safely, but still getting the kids back to a sense of normalcy.
Correct.
Well,
and they all appreciated that, Master Smith. They all, I mean, I have testimonials that I actually made into a book, and I emailed to our Facebook leads when they came in for when they would go on virtual. So we did a lot of hard mailings too, but they all really respected and loved the idea of what we're doing for the kids, what you're doing for the kids, what you're doing for the kids. So it was always echoed. Hometown hero we became, I think, it felt good.
Well, you hang on just a half second, Master Moody. I'll come back. But Paul, on the opening, you stole my phrase of, and welcome to it, of I'd rather ask permission, forgiveness than permission, right? But I wanted to pick up on something you said there. Is you said you're doing all of the recommendations, because that's my next myth, that anyone who is failing, they almost always say, well, I'm doing everything you told me to do. Right, Master Smith? Right, Master Betty?
Yep.
I'm doing everything you told me to do. Okay.
Except,
Well, but here's, so on the virtual, you started it, Paul. So let's go through the list. Did you do a new textbook and deliver it to each of the
Yes.
students individually? Right. I mean, you did. Did you keep your attendance cards for everybody and keep a normal Zoom schedule?
Yes.
Did you keep the stripes and the belts going on the same sequence in the same order?
Correct.
Yeah. And did you hammer them with over communication, physically, email, text, reminders, phone calls, every mechanism possible?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we could go through the list.
and his
But-
marketing, he did a lot of marketing too.
Yeah. But you're going to do over $1 million this year, and you're going to be even or up from over $1 million last year with a good net to the bottom line because you're doing all the stuff, right? And in your case, you've trained a great staff, so you deserve both a big bank account, but also, pleasurable vacations and new toys. And you and I talk about cars and watches all the time, but you deserve that. And there's nothing at all wrong with it because of what you're doing for the kids. And you're doing the right thing to earn the money, and you're having a huge impact. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you.
I didn't think you were going to argue with me on that one, but
Well, I almost made the mistake what you guys were talking about. I mean, and my knee-jerk reaction was not to spend money for advertising. And I thought about it. I was like, I'm spending a couple grand a month, and maybe I'll just ease up and keep that in my pocket for a rainy day. And then I heard what everybody was talking about, and I said no. So I just kept that going.
Yeah.
So and it worked out because we did have signups. We plugged some holes. We still got our name out there. We're still getting leads, making appointments. So I'm glad I didn't crumble.
Yeah. Let's bring Jan into the conversation, although she says she's Rachel, but really it's Jan.
I don't know how to change her name because when we switch the Zoom thing, I'm not real good at that stuff. So I'll be Rachel today.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Rachel's sister.
I'm Rachel's sister. I like that. Okay, kind of the same thing. I would say the same thing that Paul said, different from Amanda, because in the beginning, when it first happened, I was doom and gloom. I was watching the news 24/7, and I was like kind of in a bad place, projecting what was going to happen. All those things you just talked about, that was me. And then I started seeing what Amanda was doing, and I started hearing what the group, and it was possible to get people online. And of course, I tried like 7 of them. I had 2 people sign up virtual, and then they both canceled. And then I even polarized more, saying, oh, this isn't going to work. And then we started getting them, and it started working. So I lost about a month that we didn't, maybe 2 months. I don't even know how long it was, but we lost a little bit because we didn't do our advertising. We didn't push. We didn't do anything new. So we were down students. But the good news is we are still up. The last conference call we just had, I looked at where my numbers were from last year because I didn't really know. I knew we were 14% behind goal. Our goal is $1.2 million. So we're only at 86% of that. But I looked at where we were from last year, we're up 11%. So I should still be happy. That's like another positive thing. And we're at 106,000 this month. So I'm not complaining. I'm just keeping it going, but it's.
Okay, Jan, so you're up.
106 in June?
Yes, sir.
Well,
You're-
let's say something else about Jan though as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big,
Right.
a little,
I'm happy with it.
that's a nice spotlight.
It's about
Yeah,
her.
well, let's put it in context. You're up 11%, while a huge number of people, most of them in our business, are catastrophizing, melting down, not taking action. So you're up 11% over last year in the worst pandemic in 100 years, in a time when unemployment spiked because the entire country shut things down. And by the way, the hub of the biggest spike in the last month is not, it's basically where you're at, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean,
And
so
last year was a record year. It wasn't just that last year you stumbled your way through. It was a record year, and now you're even above that. So
Yeah, I remember not too long ago you were doing 40,000 a month.
But you guys
I remember thinking 50 was like unrealistic.
you guys are missing out on a big point. That you guys are missing out on a big point, Jan. That a lot of Jan's business was after school martial arts. So she's doing better and made it work, even though for some people, they just totally shut down because, after everybody went home and they didn't have school, and you still made it work.
Well, you're missing the other point that Jan went on vacation for the entire month of June.
Well, that's true.
And it was her daughter running things.
The renewals.
About that.
Renewals really helped us. Renewing those people and getting a higher per person is really what made the difference for us.
Yeah.
And it took me so long. And still, even I'll give you an example. Rachel texted me about 2 weeks ago and said, we need to raise our rates again. I didn't answer her. we're at $249 a month. She wants to be over $3. And I'm just.
I think Rachel's in charge of your pricing, not you.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime she has a good idea, just say yes.
I think you better just check with her, Jan, rather than her checking with you.
Yeah. And just have a conversation with Rachel. Anytime I don't answer, just assume it's yes. There you go. I
think it's fair to point out too, Master Oliver, Jansen, not a big town either. I mean, she's again another small town, Middleburg, Florida. It's it's not a big metropolis as well. So
well, and Jan whines all the time about how broke everybody is there.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, kind of.
Some of them.
Not your students, though.
No.
Well, yeah, some of her students too. But I'm just telling you, for everybody else's benefit, Jan, we love you to death. Congratulations, you deserve the night out on the town and another vacation. And by the way, you're the most hard-headed SOB that we've ever come across. And you whine more about how broke everybody is in that area than anybody I've heard recently.
I laugh when I hear other people do it, though. Because I just sit here and smile when they say, well, you don't understand my area. Well, you don't know. I just laugh because it's a process that I had to go through. I had to believe it, I still have to go through it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you still are going
through
it.
I'm still there.
Rachel is your ace in the hole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's address the other myth here really quick. And I had 2 or 3 people post, oh, you don't understand. Everybody's unemployed. Let me ask Jan, Amanda, and Paul, what percentage of your students did you actually have in a panic, want to cancel their program or not pay their bills? Honestly, what were the numbers? So we have Brick, New Jersey-ish. Paul, what did you have on that?
I'd say it would be about 10%.
Yeah. Okay. Jan?
I was going to guess the same thing. I don't know exactly, but probably around 10%.
Okay. And and for both of you, were those people who, can't pay for a couple of months, or are those people who just bailed and wouldn't return phone calls and their payment didn't go through?
Most of mine we need to, I'm freezing their account for a few months.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. Although it's been delayed now, it's frozen for a few more.
Yeah, you give them a little discount. Yeah.
Some of my parents were in the hospitality business, so they were out of work. So we put a freeze on it. But I got to say, my guys are real diligent. We put a lot of those people right back on like last month.
Yeah. And to interpret, they're staying in class and you're insisting they stay in class,
Correct.
Doing everything you can to get them to stay in class.
Yep.
And working with them financially.
Correct.
And you'll worry about it later, right?
Yep.
And if it were me, I wouldn't be adding the balance to the end. I would just be, those couple months are gratis. It's on us. So, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we made a point to make sure that they were always on Zoom. Made sure they were on our list to make sure we delivered books to them. So we didn't look the other way because they had a financial. They were still members and they were still part of the group and serviced them just as good as we would somebody who was paying.
Yeah, if not better, right?
So
Right.
important to keep track of all those, because if you're not doing the attendance checking every class, using those attendance cards. You know, that old system where I'm just going to scan it or just go onto the computer. You got to have that physical card and use that system if you want to get your dropout percentages to a better retention.
Yeah. And Amanda, same question for you.
We're at, currently we're at about 12%.
Yeah. And Amanda, you know, my mother worked with an organization by the name of Project Concern International for, I don't know, 40, 50 years. And I remember when I was in high school, we went to 3 of the most impoverished places in the world where they work. We went to Appalachia, Tennessee, and rode around with the big RV dental clinics that they have, because in Appalachia, all their teeth are horrible, and everybody, not everybody, but you know, they think that having constant pain in their teeth is normal because they've grown up without having a dentist. The other 2 were Tijuana,
Johnson City, Tennessee.
yeah, probably so. And the other 2, I don't remember, to tell you the truth. The other 2 were Guatemala and Tijuana. Right.
Right.
And
Right. I mean,
so,
you're telling the truth.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But we rode around in their dental vans. I don't know if they still work there or not. The organization was Project Concern International.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few mobile medical facilities here.
Yeah. But you know, for any of those who think, oh, you don't understand, you know, my area. And by the way, the funniest ever is the ones who say, oh, you don't understand. I hate to pick on him because he's a wonderful human being, but Ernie Reyes Sr. is, my story was I was doing a meeting for all of their staff, and this is years ago, and I turned to Ernie and I said, Ernie, why in the hell in Silicon Valley are you charging half of what I'm charging in Denver, Colorado? If you don't know where they are, Silicon Valley is the stretch that's between San Francisco and San Jose. And it's right in the middle is Stanford University. So that's where you have Apple, HP, Google, I mean, you know, all of the big tech companies. And he said to me with a straight face, he said, you don't understand, the cost of living here is so high, that's all that they can afford. And I turned to him, I said, Ernie, you know, my 2 handicaps are I have a degree in international economics from Georgetown University and an MBA. And the reason why any of the expenses that are different than anywhere else in the country are high is because it has too much money chasing too few goods. There's this thing called supply and demand. So the reason why you buy a shack in Silicon Valley for what you'd buy a mansion for in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is that people are making a ton of money in Silicon Valley. And there's money, right? He just could not get that through his head. So that, you know, people make that other excuse. We had another gentleman who was literally in the financial district in New York City who said the same thing. It was just the dumbest possible reaction. But anyway, so let's thank you guys for that feedback.
It's time to thrive, not just survive. Stephen Oliver has decided to share free martial arts stimulus package worth at least $3,000 absolutely free. He and his team will teach you how to serve your students, grow your school, improve your revenue, and grow your staff during the shutdowns and the gradual reopenings into the new normal. The schools that he's working with are thriving during challenging times. In what ways? How about $92,000 revenue in March, 30 enrollments in April, and an overwhelming lead and intro flow in May, $201,000 in renewals in one weekend in April, and much, much more. Does this sound unbelievable? Well, we will share it all with you absolutely free as a $3,000 plus free gift. This is a special Save and Grow Our Industry stimulus plan, only for the first 100 schools to claim it by filling out our acceptance form on this page. You'll receive a total of $300,000 in free martial arts school growth tools that includes the complete checklist for thriving during shutdowns and the complete checklist for successful gradual reopenings. You'll also receive the recordings of 8 members-only all-hands meetings that detailed real-world examples from very successful school owner on what's working now to great new students, keep 100% of students happy and engaged, and hit new revenue records. If you think that these are challenging times, think again. It's time for you to thrive. Did you know, for instance, your students can love the new normal with much additional support, resources, and personal interaction? We're getting 90+% retention into the new normal. Belt rank progression, character development, leadership development, Stripe testings are all working great. Our members are building tremendous loyalty. The marketing Parthenon that Master Oliver teaches is working better than ever. Why? Facebook's traffic is up 640%, and advertising rates are down. Email is working. Really, people are reading their email again. Public and private schools are more willing than ever to help promote your program. Publicity is working better than ever. Our members are becoming local TV stars and getting great coverage on TV, newspapers, radio, and many other sources. Driving free introductory traffic. Direct mail's working great. Students' reactivations is working great. Getting back to those who dropped out due to other activities, among other reasons. And many, many more sources are working great. It's simple and easy to teach virtual introductory lessons and do virtual enrollment conferences at your normal terms and tuition, all at excellent closing rates. It's easier than ever to help students set long-term goals for themselves. Renewals are working better than ever, and it's easier than ever to get parents engaged in training and to support your processes. Claim your free $3,000 value martial arts stimulus package immediately